The heavy rain lashed against the glass walls of a sprawling mansion perched on the edge of the city. Inside, silence reigned. Expensive paintings adorned the walls, the marble floors gleamed, and yet, the house felt lifeless, like a museum built around one man's loneliness. That man was Richard Cole, a self-made millionaire who trusted no one. Once a kind, idealistic dreamer, years of betrayal and greed had hardened him. He believed every smile had a price, every kindness had a motive. To him, loyalty was just a myth people used to comfort themselves. But fate had a plan that would tear open the cold walls around his heart. If you believe that kindness still exists in this world, that people deserve second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Vibes. Your support helps us keep spreading stories that touch the soul and remind the world that compassion never truly dies. Richard's life had become mechanical: business meetings, fine wine, empty parties, and long, lonely nights. The only person who saw him in his raw, unguarded moments was Maria, his maid. A quiet woman in her late 30s, she had worked for him for 2 years. She spoke little, always kept her eyes down, and never asked for anything. She cleaned his home with silent precision, always leaving a faint scent of lavender wherever she went. To Richard, she was just another employee, replaceable and unremarkable. But lately, he had started to notice something strange. Every morning, Maria would arrive early, bringing with her a small paper bag of homemade food. Sometimes she left it on the counter untouched, sometimes she'd quietly put it in the fridge before starting her chores. One evening, when Richard came home early, he saw her placing a bowl of soup on the dining table, though she thought he wasn't home. He watched from the hallway, puzzled. She whispered softly, as if to someone invisible, "You should eat, sir. You've barely touched your food all week." Then she quietly left the room. Richard stood frozen. It had been years since anyone had spoken to him with such care. But suspicion was Richard's reflex. He told himself it was all an act, a ploy to gain his trust, maybe to find a way into his fortune. Memories of old betrayals resurfaced. His former business partner who stole millions, the friend who leaked his secrets, even his own brother who sold his family home without his consent. He had vowed never to trust again. And now, he was sure this quiet maid was no different. So, one morning, he decided to test her. He went to his study, opened his massive steel safe, and intentionally left it slightly ajar. Inside lay stacks of crisp bills, gold coins, and documents worth more than some small towns. Then he called Maria, pretending to head out for a 2-day business trip. "I'll be gone for the weekend," he said coldly, not looking her in the eye. "Take care of the house." Maria simply nodded. "Of course, sir." As soon as Richard left, he parked his car down the road and returned silently through the back entrance, watching through hidden cameras. Every corner of his mansion was under surveillance. He sat in his office, eyes glued to the monitor, waiting for her to make a move. The day dragged on. She dusted the shelves, mopped the floors, and folded the linens with her usual quiet grace. Hours passed, she never even glanced toward the open safe. The next morning, she noticed it. Richard could see her on the screen, standing before the half-open vault. She froze, her eyes wide. He leaned forward, ready to confirm his suspicions. But what she did next made his heart skip. She didn't reach inside. She didn't even touch the handle. Instead, she walked to her bag, pulled out a small cloth, and wiped the dust off the metal edges before gently closing it. Then, she knelt down, whispered something he couldn't hear, and left the room. Richard frowned. He rewound the footage, playing it again and again. Her lips moved softly, "God, protect him from his own loneliness." He sat there, stunned. It wasn't greed in her eyes, it was sorrow. Later that night, unable to shake the feeling, Richard went downstairs. He found a small paper bag on the counter again. Inside, a sandwich, a thermos of soup, and a note. "You looked tired this week. Please eat something warm." The handwriting was simple, almost childlike. He felt an ache deep in his chest. Why would she care? Why would someone he barely acknowledged think of him? The next morning, he decided to follow her discreetly after she left. He wanted to know what her secret was, why she was so kind, and what she wanted in return. Her path led him to the city's poorest neighborhood, a crumbling building with broken windows and rusted balconies. She entered a small apartment. Through the window, he saw a young boy, maybe 8 years old, in a wheelchair. Maria knelt beside him, helping him eat breakfast, her face glowing with a gentle smile. Later that day, Richard searched her employee records. Her husband had died in a construction accident 3 years ago. She'd been raising her disabled son alone ever since, working multiple jobs to afford his medicine. He sat back, overwhelmed. This woman, who had every reason to be bitter, still found the strength to be kind, to a man who had given her nothing but silence. The guilt hit him like a wave. He had tested her integrity as if she were a thief, when all she had ever done was show him quiet grace. That night, he couldn't sleep. The next morning, he went to her apartment. When she opened the door, she froze, startled to see her employer standing there in his tailored suit. Richard didn't speak for a long moment. His voice trembled when he finally did. "Maria, I owe you an apology." She shook her head, flustered. "Sir, you don't owe me anything." But Richard insisted. He told her everything, the cameras, the test, the open safe. Tears filled her eyes, but not from anger. She simply said, "Sir, when you've lost everything, you stop looking for what you can take. You start valuing what you can give." Those words broke him. For the first time in years, Richard cried. Not the restrained tears of frustration, but the deep, unguarded sobs of a man who finally realized how empty his wealth had become. He looked around the small apartment, saw the boy's frail smile, and something shifted inside him. That evening, he made a decision that would change their lives forever. He arranged for the boy's medical treatment at one of the best hospitals in the country and set up a trust fund for his education. But more than that, he asked Maria to stay, not as a maid, but as the housekeeper and heart of his home. "This house needs warmth," he said softly. "I think you're the only one who can bring it back." Months passed, and the mansion that once felt like a prison of marble and silence began to feel alive again. The boy would visit on weekends, filling the halls with laughter. Maria tended to the garden, growing roses where weeds once stood. And Richard, he smiled more, laughed more, lived more. The walls that had guarded his heart for years had finally fallen, not through wealth or power, but through the quiet, unshakable kindness of a woman who asked for nothing in return. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Vibes. Let's fill the world with stories that remind us all, true wealth isn't measured by what's in your safe, but by what's in your heart.